Hey there, Manuel here. Welcome back to the Tech with Tours channel. In this one, I'll go over my plugin setup with Claude Code and also explain why I think that a simple setup is usually better than trying to overcomplicate things. So if I navigate here and I type plugin, as you can see, we have here the Discover Plugins tab, which allows us to search for different plugins that are available natively inside of Claude Code. And then I also have some plugins related to the Superpowers plugin store, which I'll talk about in just a second. So here in the installed section, we have both the user installed plugins and also MCPs. I guess this is something recent where they also add here the MCPs. In terms of MCP servers, I have a very simple setup. I have Playwright, which is a plugin that allows us to install a Chrome extension inside of Google Chrome and then enable it to interact with the browser in that way instead of relying on Playwright directly. And this makes things simpler. I guess that it allows us to also not use as much context when we are working with Playwright. Under the hood, it uses the same APIs, so you have the same abilities, and it has a couple of niceties attached to it, including the extension inside of Google Chrome, which makes the communication between them much simpler. And then to search for documentation and do Google searches or web searches, in this case, I use Contact 7 for documentation and Exa for web searches. These are both tools that allows me to tell the AI agent to search for certain kinds of documentation of tools that I'm using. For example, now I'm working on relaunching a platform. So previously it was Web Dev Fuel, and now I want to launch sort of a community oriented platform with courses, with all of those good stuff. And to build it, I'm using React and then Stack Start instead of Next.js. And I have to usually ask it to take a look at the documentation to see how things work in 10 Stack Start. And also besides the documentation, it can also search for articles to see like what the best ways of doing things are and stuff like that. So both of these are basically for searching outside of the code base, and Playwright is to interact with the browser to confirm certain kinds of things are indeed working inside of the application that I might currently be working on. If you go watch the previous videos, I talked about how important it is to have verifiability and to be able to confirm that things indeed work instead of just relying on the word of the AI agent like Claude Code. So it usually writes some code and then it says, okay, this thing works. But I think that the best way of actually working with these tools is having verifiability. Again, go watch the previous video. But this really quickly just ties here into Playwright, which allows us to have the agents actually go into the browser and test out the functionality if we're talking about websites or web applications. And then here, these are the ones that I've installed from Superpowers. I'll show you in just a second the Git repository so that you can take a look at how to install it. But it essentially is a set of skills. I only use the skills from Superpowers, and the skills that I use are mainly the brainstorming one. Then it creates a design document, and then we turn that design document into a plan. And this is essentially the stuff that I use. And also recently, I've started using here the elements of style when I want to ask Claude Code to write something for me, like the slides of previous videos. It is a book, if you're not familiar with it, which talks about how to write in a way that basically is akin to like communication, good communication, sharing ideas and stuff like that. So you can also take a look at that book. I actually recommend it. It is pretty good. But besides this, I only use the 3 different skills: brainstorming, the design, which I don't really think it is a skill, it is part of the brainstorming skill, and then writing plans, finally executed plans, obviously. That's also a thing. So here I've installed Superpowers developing for Claude Code. I rarely use this one because it is when I want to create something like a hook. It basically tells Claude Code how to work with itself in the sense of like creating hooks, creating subagents, creating like the markdown files and what the different kinds of things that the markdown files need for, like I said, for example, subagents or for skills in this case. And it is a very good way for us to keep up to date with the documentation without having to use something like I just showed you, for example, Contact 7. And it also gives some guidance to Claude Code on how to create these things like hooks and stuff like that. Talking about that, I think that we also have here part of the Claude plugins official repo. We also have Hookify, which is easily create custom hooks to prevent unwanted behavior. So you can also take a look at that one. But usually I just stick here with the Superpowers plugins. And then we have Superpowers Lab and Superpowers itself. So I have these free marketplaces here installed. And then I have here also Rolf Loop, and then elements of style and TypeScript LSP. So Rolf Loop is something that I've been testing a little bit, but I'm not really too convinced by it yet. Specifically in the use cases that I have here, it seems that it might be good for certain kinds of work, but with the things that I've been doing, I think it is a bit overkill. I'll try to get more into it in the next videos. I've been saying this for a couple of videos, but like I'm saying, I just don't really see it being that useful for the kind of work that I'm doing, and I think it is much better to stay in the loop myself and just see what the model is doing, what the AI agent is doing, and doing things that way. And yeah, like I said here, finally, TypeScript LSP. This is a recent like addition here to Claude Code that allows us to install LSPs, in this case for TypeScript, and then it communicates with the AI agent, and it tells it after, for example, updating code, if there's some kind of problem with the LSP, if the LSP has some kind of like error warning, stuff like that, and it can iterate based on that. But here basically we have, like I said, the Superpowers marketplace, and the way that this works is that we need to first of all install here the marketplace itself. This is the official one, and then I've installed this one, but I decided to just use the MCP server. So actually I think I can just remove this one. Let's go back here to the plugins, and then I have here the Superpowers marketplace, which allows us to install here these three different plugins: the Superpower one, the developing for Claude Code, and the lab one. So now I'll hop into the browser to show you here the Git repository of Superpowers, and then I'll show you some examples of how to use these skills, which I think is the most interesting thing here about my setup of Claude Code. Again, I'll leave a link in the description down below, but it is basically over and then /superpowers. This is a GitHub project, and like this says here, this is for Claude Code, but recently they've added for Codex as well and open code support. And if we jump here into the skills, as you can see, we have a bunch of different skills, and the ones, like I said, that I use the most are brainstorming. Then brainstorming itself takes care of the design document, and then writing plans, and finally executing plans. And I almost forgot this one, writing skills. This is also one of my favorites because this one allows me to write skills using a TDD approach, meaning that it launches sub-agents, and then when it launches those sub-agents, it ensures that it closes a lot of loopholes in terms of the skills, in terms of how the skill is actually written, and it ensures that the skill actually does what we want it to do. So now that I've showed you here how this repo looks like, so we can also hop here, writing skills, for example. As you can see, we have this thing here, the description, and then the overview, and it explains everything that Claude Code itself needs to know on how to correctly write a skill. So now let's again hop back into the terminal, and I'll show you here an example of how to use this. So I'm going to clear this one here, and I'll tell here Claude Code to, for example, take a look at the landing page, let's say, for example, or the login page of this project, and offer some suggestions on how to improve it. I'm going to do this because my microphone is blocking my view here, on how to improve it when it comes to design. Keep things simple and start a new brainstorming session to figure out how these changes will look like. And I'm assuming I've typed the correct thing. So I'll do this. I'll wait for just a couple of seconds or minutes, and then we'll continue doing this. Okay, so it took 35 seconds, and it first invoked the skill itself, Superpowers. So this is the prefix of the marketplace, and then brainstorming. And now using the brainstorming to explore login page design improvements, it went over the files. And now, since it started a brainstorming sessions, it starts asking me questions. So what aspect of the design concerns you most right now? Visual appeal, layout. So let's say, for example, let's say here number 3. So I'll say option 3, the user experience. Now it asks which UX element would make the biggest difference, better loading submission feedback, and it also has here the autocomplete. So I'm going to just say option 1 because I want to keep this simple for now. And now it says what style of loading feedback appeals to you. I'll say option 1 and write the design document. So I'm going to do this to make things a little bit faster so we don't go back and forth too much with it. And now it says here, here's the proposed changes. So this is the design, and if I agree with it, then is going to go ahead and write. So it's going to say here, yes, you can write the design doc. Now we're ready to set up the implementation. So I'll say write a detailed plan using the writing plans skill. So if we take a look here, this is the writing skills, and we have here the writing plans, and this is going to set up things based on, like it says here, bite-sized test granularity, which is something very good because we are able to see the work that the agent is doing and constantly monitor it, and we can go faster, be productive without sort of not even knowing what's up and what's happening inside of the code base. So back here now, it's going to gather some more context. This is also part of the instructions here on writing plans, and now it's going to write a detailed implementation plan. So let's wait a bit and then we'll continue with this. Now at the end, it asks me if I want to use the sub-agent driven approach or a parallel session. So I usually just do the following. I copy this, I do here new, and I say execute the plan, and then it starts doing its thing. So the cool thing about doing this is that we clear the context. The context is for us to decide how things will look like, but it doesn't require to have, we don't require rather all of that context to be able to actually do the execution of the plan. Now it reads the plan itself. The plan tells the agent already that it needs to invoke this skill, and then it does exactly that. It invokes the skill, and then it starts working on things. It first of all verifies that all of the things are in place to be able to implement the plan. There's a quick check here of the code base, as you can see, and then it starts working on it. So now let's wait for the first batch, and then I think we can conclude this one here. Okay, so the implementation took some time because it tried to run all of the tests instead of only running the test for that particular page, but it eventually figured it out, and it knew that it needed to kill that test process and then just run here the tests for this particular page, and it passed. Then it also runs the build to see that everything is working correctly, and it says here implemented. Then the output, both of the tests pass, the build is successful, and the commits were created for this. So if we hop here and we say JJ, as you can see, it says here fit add loading spinner to login button, add loader to import, add loading spinner tests for login button, and these ones were created by me previously. But the cool thing is that as it works, it also commits things, which is pretty awesome. And now it says if we want to continue with the next batch of work, but this is besides the point of this video, so I'm going to leave this here. As you can see, the setup in terms of plugins is very simple. I don't really have a lot of things besides, again, Context 7, Exa, Playwriter, and the Superpowers skills, and this is for me the perfect setup because I'm always in control. I have this sort of batched work that the AI agent can do, and I don't really need to concern myself with other complexities around this. I see that a lot of people have these Claude memory stuff and a lot of just complex things that I don't think help as much. In a way, all of these complexities are the same thing as trying to implement microservices into everything back in the day. It is just overkill. It is not necessary for what we are doing here. And just like in the same spirit of microservices, it is something that we don't need. We just want to implement it because it looks cool. Other people are doing it. We see it online. And I think that a simple setup when it comes to AI agents is most likely than not better. And you want to keep things simple because you understand what's happening. And I think that tools can still be powerful even if they are simple to use, to understand. Here the superpower skills or set of skills is just amazing. I think it improved my productivity very much, and that again combined with the fact that the model obviously needs to be able to fetch documentation from somewhere to know what's happening. And besides that, I think that a more complex setup is not really necessary. I might change my mind in the future about this, but for now this is the setup that I have. So this is it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. What is your setup, if you agree with this idea that the setup should be simple or not, and I'll see you on the next